Najee Harris is one of the biggest risers in Dynasty leagues. We'll tell you why next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And joining me today, as always, is Kate Madjuk. You can follow her on Twitter at Kate Madjuk. And it's a great day today because we've got some updated Dynasty ADP courtesy of Dynasty League Football. So one of the things that we thought we should do is look at some of the biggest veteran risers to start. And let's start with Najee Harris, who admittedly, Kate, is your guy here, your former Steeler running back, signed with the Chargers in free agency. He is up to RB 25 in Dynasty leagues right now. He's seen a massive increase in his ADP overall. Why the sudden love for Najee?
I think it comes down to fit. Now, I know when we're looking at the contract that Najee Harris received in free agency, absolutely nothing to write home about. I mean, it's laden with incentives, which means, the base pay, not all that impressive. Najee Harris is going to have to hit some benchmarks in order to yield the $9+ million that he has the potential to earn here in 2025. But I don't think anybody's questioning the fact that, despite the fact that Najee Harris has not necessarily been the most efficient running back, that there's going to be a lot of opportunity here in this Chargers offense with Justin Herbert, who's by far the best, quarterback that he's played with in the last couple of years. We know there's going to be a ton of opportunity from a rushing volume standpoint. In all of Greg Roman's years as an offensive coordinator, 11 NFL seasons, this past season where the Chargers ranked 11th in terms of total rushing attempts, that is the lowest rank a Greg Roman offense has ever had. You pair that with a volume workhorse running back and Najee Harris, and I think there's going to be some magic here in the season to come, but also maybe beyond.
I'm conflicted here. So I want you to kind of help me sort my thoughts, because on one hand, Najee Harris feels very much like the type of running back that Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman love. Like, he is reliable. He's durable. He has not missed a single game since entering the NFL. He doesn't fumble, right? And he plays on all three downs. So that looks like somebody that can be on the field whenever you need him. He's going to be, he's just going to be there every week. And the scheme, they always believe, Greg Roman believes the scheme will be good enough to make any running back look good. And that's why somebody like Gus Edwards, when he was with the Ravens, was averaging 5 yards a carry, despite not being a special athlete by any means, right? So part of me does wonder, you go from the Steelers that had a very up and down offensive line with some very not great offensive coordinators. Kate, is that fair?
I think that's more than fair, yes.
You get a quarterback that can stretch the defense by making plays down the field in Justin Herbert, somebody that can also be utilized with his legs. And I see how this would work, right? I get it. But the contract thing does worry me a little bit. They don't really have anything invested into Najee. It's a 1-year deal. And what if they draft somebody here that's, they get in the third round, they would be probably more incentivized to play that player. So I guess I have mixed feelings from a Dynasty perspective, Kate, again, because this is a Dynasty show. He signed a 1-year contract with the Chargers. Do I really want to buy into a guy that might be on his third team in 3 years next year?
I mean, it's definitely a risk, but I think, again, when we're looking at players who, have the draft capital, have the pedigree, have the reliability factor, I think, in terms of his overall dynasty value, the price that you're paying for that, I think is pretty negligible at this point. Najee Harris right now, latest batch of Dynasty ADP, we mentioned him, one of the biggest risers. He is RB 25. He's 27 years old. Like you said, never missed an NFL game, former first-round pick, has an opportunity in a contract year to make a big mark, and yet he's being drafted several spots behind 25-year-old running back, fifth-round dude, or 5th round, Tyrone Tracy,
Yeah.
who I think the Giants are in a position much more likely to draft a running back than the Chargers, at least with maybe some higher draft capital. I think, Chuba Hubbard, Alvin Kamara, who's, 29 years old, and we don't have high expectations for Joe Mixon, 28, like in a similar situation. I just think in general, maybe you could be hesitant about Najee Harris, but when you look at the running backs that he's being drafted around, I think in terms of safe floor paired with the upside in a Chargers offense led by Justin Herbert, orchestrated by Greg Roman, yeah, Najee Harris at RB25 feels like a freaking steal.
Yeah. So just to be clear, he's in February ADP, excuse me. He was 114 overall. He's up to 81st overall. While the overall running back rank hasn't changed too much because of this upcoming rookie class, he's just getting drafted a lot earlier in these startup drafts. One of the things that I wanted to look at, Kate, are some like recent trades to kind of see where his value is at. And I got a couple that I want to ask you about. So Najee Harris for Jaden Reed, straight up, no picks attached.
If I need a running back, I'll take Harris.
And I could also see like you being just in a bunch of leagues and it's like, hey, Jaden Reed's my wide receiver 4 or wide receiver 5. I got him in the second round a couple years ago. I need to shore up my RB2 spot. Let me trade and Reed for Najee. It's a very short-sighted move, but it's also one that I understand.
For sure.
Okay. What about Najee Harris for pick 201 in this upcoming rookie draft? This is a non-super flex draft, by the way, non-super flex.
Non-super flex. And again, I know we're not necessarily expecting a ton of quarterbacks off the board there all that early, but I'll probably take the safety of Najee Harris.
So that's hard for me because now you're looking at like,
am I in a win now position? Then
does it matter though? I guess I want to know, does it matter? Because we've seen so many of these running backs that you can get like, well, actually we haven't, because we haven't seen a running back class like this in a while, but these running backs that are going to be drafted as like RB 6, 7, and 8 in this class, I think a lot of times would go in round 1. So like, let me give you a name. Would you rather have Najee Harris or Kim Scatterbo straight up?
I'll take Harris.
Okay. What about like Najee Harris or DJ Giddens, the running back from Kansas State, who I like quite a bit?
Probably more dependent on landing spot for me, which we don't know yet.
Yeah. Let me give you one more Najee Harris trade. What about Najee Harris for Najee Harris and Justin Fields. This is a super flex league. Najee Harris and Justin Fields, probably a former Steelers fan, for a 2026 first round pick.
Oh,
that seems like a little bit of an over. I like Fields in super flex leagues. That feels a little rich.
It feels a little rich for me as well. But again, maybe more dependent on where are you projecting that first round pick? Are you projecting it to be an early pick at this point? Probably rich. If you're a legitimate contender and you think there's a very realistic chance that that is the, last pick in the first round, then I think that's a pretty fair bargain. So it might just depend on your situation. But I think what these trades are showing us is that the market for Najee Harris is kind of palatable.
Yeah, you can get him.
It's reasonable.
You can get him pretty cheap. There are currently 5 rookie running backs that are being drafted ahead of Najee Harris, and I agree with them all, by the way. But that's why his ADP is pushed down. I actually think now is not the time to trade for Najee Harris. I think once we get to the draft and once we get some excitement and we see where some of these running backs land, that's going to only drive up the rookie excitement. I think the time to trade for Najee is like June, July, August. Because I got a feeling his ADP is not going to go any higher than what it is right now.
Very fair.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Breece Hall, because we got some interesting quotes from Aaron Glenn, the new head coach of the New York Jets, on Monday. We'll discuss him and his dynasty value next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That is 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories to even who's cutting down the nets. I would say that I would have my eye on a couple underdogs coming up, but it's all number one seeds. So can you really have a big underdog with 4 number one seeds? But FanDuel is letting me pick Auburn, and that's who I'm backing the rest of the tournament. That's who I picked in my bracket. And it's easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. And with tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something fun and exciting to bet on. Plus, the FanDuel app is simple and easy to use. And when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Okay, let's talk about Breece Hall. He is actually one of the biggest losers when it came to the latest batch of ADP over on Dynasty League Football. We've seen his overall ADP in 1 month go from 17 down to 24. I know that doesn't sound like a big drop, but overall, that's like a half a round in round 2. He's now dropped to RB7. There was a point last year where he was RB2, RB7 in the latest batch of Dynasty ADP. Plus, we got a quote from Aaron Glenn today saying, basically they want to use all 3 running backs, and they acknowledge that it was a rough year for Breece Hall. Where do we stand on Breece going into his contract year?
This is a really tricky position. And we know that the cliff for running backs can be ginormous. Breece Hall, he's still young. He's not even 24 years old yet. And we've seen a ton of upside for Breece Hall. But as you mentioned, it was a bit of a down year. And we've seen a decrease in his year-over-year yards per rush attempt. We've seen a decrease in his yards after contact per attempt. Just generally, I think we've seen a less explosive version of Breece Hall every year dating back to his rookie season. So things are not trending in the right direction. Yards per route run, he has decreased in every single year. Breakaway yard percentage per PFF, PFF elusive play grade, all decrease. So when you see that kind of year over year decline, it gets really hard to be on board. And I think what the Jets saw this year, especially when Braylon Allen took the field, Isaiah Davis, who was one of my favorite sleepers in last year's class, they've got a lot of depth. And if you're not seeing that kind of upside from Breece Hall on an every down basis, why not get some of these other guys in the mix?
One of the things that was very noticeable last year is that Breece Hall's still a good athlete, but if you watch his 2022 tape before he got injured, he looked like a special athlete. I remember the game the Jets played against the Packers in Green Bay, where it was actually the game that Breece Hall got hurt. I mean, he looked like he was moving at a different speed than everybody else. And maybe another year removed from the ACL, he'll get there. But I always worry, Kate, about these running backs that get hurt earlier in their career, excuse me. On top of that, the Jets have a new GM. They have a new head coach. They have a new offensive coordinator. Not a lot of ties to Breece Hall. So I'm wondering, especially with him going into the final year of his contract, is there a chance that Breece Hall is on a different team this year?
I mean, it wouldn't necessarily shock me. Again, when you look at some of the depth that they were able to acquire there in the 2024 draft, it makes it, I think, a little bit less crazy to imagine them moving on, especially when they're in the middle of this big organizational reset. If you're looking to nab some value, if you're not sure that this is going to be a guy, he's not going to have the 5th-year option. This is going to be a critical year for him. If you're not dead set that this is a guy that you want to build your run game around, then I do think it probably makes sense to do some exploration in terms of what you might be able to get back from him in a trade. Out of all the Jets running backs last year, Hall had the highest stuff rate, 10% stuff rate per Sport Radar. We saw, I think, a lot more efficiency from Isaiah Davis. Braylon Allen, 3.6 yards per carry, which I think is probably one of the more deceiving like box score stats because he looked a lot better than a 3.6 yards per attempt. I just think it's probably going to be something that the Jets at least need to do their due diligence on.
I've got a couple trades that I wanted to ask you about just to kind of see where you're at in the Breece Hall market. Here's one. This is a super flex league. Breece Hall for the 104. So you're assuming that Ashton Genty, Hampton, and Ward are all off the board there. Because that now you're looking at like McMillan.
104 is really hard.
Yeah, that's I bet you're looking at like Judkins, Henderson, McMillan. I think I would take it, honestly. Here's my reasoning why. I know that Henderson and Judkins, or whoever you call RB3, they aren't as talented as Breece Hall. Like I fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
But you're resetting this clock a little bit, right? Like you can go from and again, 24 years old is not an old for running back. You understand what I mean, though. But like you're resetting the rookie clock a little bit, and it's less uncertainty, even though you're drafting a player who's never played in the NFL. So I would probably do it and then select either Henderson or Judkins or Caleb Johnson, just depending on the landing spot. But I understand why you might not want to do that deal either.
Yeah, and I think that maybe a good example of why it's nice to kind of have that rookie contract in place versus a player that's going to hit the open market. Look at a guy like Miles Sanders, right? Who, people are really excited for him
Pro Bowl running back. Yeah,
hit the market. He got paid as well, but didn't end up being, I think, a great scheme fit. I don't think he landed himself in the best situation. And I don't think we've seen a running back lose value as quickly as we saw him lose value in recent years. Like
a non-injured running back, right?
A non-injured running back. Like that is, I think, a great example of how, the uncertainties that come with a new contract, a new team, a new situation. Sometimes those players that maybe you're not dealing with those extraneous circumstances, you're not dealing with the contract changes, team changes, etc. Like sometimes having that level of security there is nice.
Two more trades I wanted to ask you about. This is a super flex and a tight end premium league. Ooh. So keep that in mind. Breece Hall for the 108. So Loveland and Tyler Warren likely gone before you pick at this spot, as would be Cam Ward, Ashton Genty, Omari, and Hampton. So now you're looking at that next tier of players. I'm assuming it's a no for you.
It's close to a no, but it's not.
Okay.
It's not a definitive no. I'd probably ask for like a third
rounder. Okay.
Yeah.
One more. This one's fascinating. Jahmyr Gibbs for Breece Hall in a 2026 first round pick. Would you be willing to piece out Gibbs for those two assets?
I think I'd prefer Gibbs.
I would prefer Gibbs as well. So I think we're in wait and see mode here for a little bit.
Yeah. Breece Hall is a guy that I'm probably just holding for the time being. I think we're in a bit of a holding pattern. We need to see the market because these comments do make me a little bit uncertain about his future there. And again, depending on the situation, like it's
tough. I know I haven't had a great feeling about Breece Hall in a while. And we've talked about it all season long where he just doesn't look like the same player that we saw as a rookie. Yeah. I think we're in wait and see mode, as we mentioned. Let's talk, Kate, about the player whose Dynasty ADP dropped the most over the last 30 days. We'll tell you who that is next. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day, and find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. All right, Kate, the player whose ADP changed the most over the last month,
Washington Commanders wide receiver Terry McLaurin. Yes. Marcus.
Yes. down
What
from
is happening?
down from 27 overall to 40th overall. That is the biggest change in value among any player. Right now in your startup drafts, you can get him as wide receiver 22. So still you're looking at a low end wide receiver 2 range. Is this smart or not?
No, I think we need to nab up as much Terry McLaurin as we possibly can. Now, let's consider the circumstances. All right. So, this is a batch of Dynasty ADP that we've now got with free agency in the rearview mirror. Okay. Good. That probably accounts for changes in value, I guess, due to Debo Samuel. Is that
Which I don't get at all, right? I mean, I'm assuming the Michael Gallup news isn't stressing you out here, right?
absolutely not?
Yeah. So
I know you're a big Michael Gallup fan, but absolutely
no,
not.
I would be shocked if he made the active roster. They also lost Diami Brown this offseason. Noah Brown's coming back, but again, those just feel like
Okay.
throwing a pebble into the ocean, right? Like it doesn't affect anything.
Hmm.
I don't get it because I kind of think Debo Samuel he's not washed, but we're getting the washer ready, right? Like we brought down the laundry, it's in the basket, we're getting close. And I just think I know they both say wide receiver next to their names, but they couldn't be any different in how they play and how they're used. Terry McLaurin is your outside receiver that handles a big workload, the passing game. He's your vertical threat. And Debo Samuel is the guy that does all the fun stuff at and behind the line of scrimmage. I don't see any reason why McLaurin is going to see fewer targets. In fact, I think he's going to see more targets with Jaden Daniels continuing to progress as a passer. I don't get this one at all.
Yeah, I very much don't either. I think Debo Samuel, you might see him do a little bit more of your dirty work. Might get some more reps out of the slot, going to do some of those more of the trick plays and maybe some designed touches. But I don't necessarily know that when I'm looking at Terry McLaurin, when I'm looking at Jaden Daniels' upside as a passer, we've talked a lot about obviously his acumen as a runner. I feel like a lot of times we get, lost in the sauce is his ability as a passer. Terry McLaurin, 5 games of 100 plus receiving yards in 2024, Jaden Daniels' rookie season. The floor was outstandingly safe. Terry McLaurin was a absolute touchdown machine from week 12 on, scored in all but one of his appearances. I don't think that they play a similar enough role for Debo Samuel to be impacting his value in this type of way. And it's not like over this amount of time, Terry McLaurin's gotten older. He's obviously technically older, but
He's
aren't we
aging like a
all?
fine wine. Like he's had 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and it's been with a different quarterback every single season. I don't get it. But I will say, I'm going to speak out of both sides of my mouth. I've never done that before in this show. He's wide receiver 22. And again, I think that's very fair value.
Mhm.
I don't understand why the ADP continues to go down. Having said that, I look at some of the receivers that are going after him, and let me name you some guys. Jalen Waddle. Would you prefer McLaurin or Waddle?
I'll take McLaurin.
I'm with you there. What about Olave? Tris Olave.
Mm. I think I'm going to take Terry McLaurin just for the sake of the concussion conversation, which I do think is a relevant piece of the evaluation for Olave right now.
I agree. That one's really hard for me because I love Olave's talent. DJ Moore.
I'll take more.
I'll take Moore as well. These are all, by the way, all receivers are being drafted after Terry McLaurin. Jordan Addison.
I'll take Addison.
I'll take Addison as well. DK Metcalf.
Metcalf.
What about Luther Burden?
I'll take McLaurin.
Okay.
That one
Brandon
hurts
Ayuk.
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm with you.
McLaurin.
Wait, hold on. I'm Bird. I'm taking Bird over McLaurin. I want to make sure I'm right. Bird. Ayuk. What about George Pickens?
I'll probably take McLaurin.
Last one. Tyreek Hill.
McLaurin.
I'll take Tyreek because there's just a chance that Tyreek was really banged up last year. And if Tyreek is healthy, he's a guy that can finish as a top 5 wide receiver every single week. I'm not quite sure that's the case for McLaurin.
It's definitely not. For me, it just comes down to, I think McLaurin probably has a couple more years in the tank and maybe not the level of upside, but I don't even know where Tyreek Hill is going to be playing football in 2025.
Yeah.
So
can I ask you before we head out, just one more, a player that's really dropped in dynasty value. It's Saquon Barkley. He's RB4 right now. That's not a big drop because Ashton Genty just passed him up by 1 spot, but we're actually seeing him being drafted at 18th overall. So, he was at one point this offseason being drafted just outside the first round. Now he's falling further into the second round. Does that make sense to you, or are you still a buyer in Saquon Barkley?
I think Saquon Barkley's value is fine. I think really what we're looking at in terms of his overall value falling, you mentioned Ashton Genty being in the mix there. I just think, we're seeing wide receivers prioritize. Brock Bowers, 10th overall in terms of dynasty startup ADP. You have some really talented wide receivers like a Nico Collins, a Marvin Harrison Jr. There's a lot of names that I think are just they're reasonable fits if you're not interested in pursuing an aging running back. A guy, I know he got the extension, but yeah, sometimes there's still a moment of hesitancy when it comes to drafting a 28-year-old running back with as many miles as Saquon Barkley. It just feels reasonable.
And you and I, the way that we build our teams when we do these when we do these startup drafts, we like to just load up heavy on young wide receivers early.
Yes.
So like our optimal strategy would be like to take a Malik Neighbors at pick 5 and then turn around and draft a Jackson Smith-Njigba, Lad McConkey, Garrett Wilson in round 2. But I also understand the philosophy of like, hey, if I got, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and I want to make sure I have a dominant running back right away, I'll get Saquon in round 2 and I'll fill in my receivers elsewhere. So I think that value is fair, but I also understand why it's dropped so significantly over the last month. He's gone from 10th overall, so he was in the first round, to 18th overall. Feels a little steep, but it feels right as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Dynasty Football your first listen every single day. We're going to continue to dive into some of this ADP as the week goes on. We're going to talk about the rookies, and by golly, the rookie running backs are as good as advertised. We'll tell you about where they're being drafted and where they're being ranked right now in your startup rookie drafts. We're also going to talk about some dynasty cloggers at some point in the week. Some guys that you can just get rid of on your dynasty teams. They're just taking up roster spots. They're not going to help you win a championship. So be on the lookout for that as well. Make sure you're following Kate on X at Kate Majuk. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.